Welcome to The Real Report, discussing key topics in real estate. Now, here's Jared Jones.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jared Jones with The Real Report. Just want to give you some brief introduction, as this is my inaugural run on the great studio down here, downtown Las Vegas, 970 AM. Such a great host 970 has been. The studio here has been fantastic, and just love being in downtown Las Vegas. We are walking distance from UNLV. We are in the heart of everything. I can hear slot machines on my walk in. It's just been fantastic so far. But listen, we are The Real Report. Jared Jones, I am a real estate expert, got a wealth of information. I will qualify that remark here in a moment. But I want to give you an idea, the mission statement of this show, okay? Real estate, in my mind, when I assess the situation, we have two major problems that I find when I see folks and investors that we've been dealing with that are dealing in real estate. Two main problems. First problem is timing. We always see poor timing in the market. Most of the time, timing is generally a challenge because of poor information, or the information that was out there was misunderstood, or the information was poorly timed. So that's an interesting component, and a problem that exists is timing. They buy at the wrong time, they sell at the wrong time. The second part of that is strategy. They just go about the market the wrong way. They're buying a home with methods that were in use 5 years ago, or trying to sell a home with a strategy that's dated. And just like technology, trying to manipulate or manage the real estate market has changed dramatically. But at my side is Gene Haffey, who is helping me with this show. He's been with me for several years. He is a child of California, of LA, if I'm not mistaken. But he's been an awesome professional, has worked with me for a long time, and has got some great things to say today regarding credit. But my name again is Jared Jones, and I've been in real estate for about 11 years now. I have transacted over 3,000 homes and helped so many chart the waters of their investments, both helping them get to the right home and helping them find the right buyer for their home if they're trying to sell. I've personally owned more than 30 properties in my life, and at the ripe old age of 33, still own several. So I've got a great wealth of information, not just on the brokerage side, but also on the investment side. Been doing it a long time. I'm an author. I wrote a book called Ancient Secrets for Modern Day Success. Can be found on Amazon. Talks about my methodology, some things that I've gone through, and really just seeking to help others with that book. But I opened my own company. I was 26 years old, Horizon Realty Group, 7 years ago. I'm still the president and CEO today. We have offices in West Vegas and also in South Vegas. But I am here to bring you as much a different lens to view your home or your investments or your buying strategy. When you have foggy glasses, you walk into things. And it goes without saying that the value of the information you have absolutely will shed light on the success you receive from the market. So with that in mind, I have a lot to say, and I will dive right in because the market, there's a lot to talk about today. One critical component, the elections are behind us. One thing that I saw in the media, or one thing that the media was actually commenting that wasn't seen, is there just wasn't a lot of talk about housing from the presidential candidates. This has a major, major impact on your investments. You're buying a home, you're selling a home, is the fact that the presidential candidates did not bring up housing. And I don't know about you, Gene, but I am glad the elections are behind us.
I am too. I was getting a little tired of all the commercials.
The commercials, there were YouTube ads. Every time you watch YouTube, you go channel to channel. You had your phone would ring off the hook, 5 calls a day from the pollsters and the folks to remind you to go out and vote. You would have nonstop TV commercials. If you're on Facebook, you were stalked by a candidate or two. And I even woke up on yesterday morning on election day, and someone had put yard signs in my master bedroom.
Yeah.
And it was bad. I woke up and I had to run for the door to see if anyone was in my home, and they were gone.
Well, don't forget being stopped before you walked in any grocery store or anything else you were doing as well.
It was, and I was an early voter, and I think early voters wait the longest in line. It's such a fallacy, is that I go into early voting last week and wait an hour while I see all these posts on Facebook of people who get through on election day in 5 minutes. And so next year, I think, or in 2 and 4 years from now, I think it pays to be undecided till the last minute. That's the bottom line there. But housing was not brought up. If you saw the headlines, Huffington Post said, "Why don't the presidential candidates talk more about housing?" The Nation did an article called "Home Foreclosures Missing from Presidential Debates." PBS NewsHour said in an article, the biggest policy issues missing from the campaign is that housing hasn't been discussed. The Boston Globe stated that the same thing, that the volume of what was said in housing or about housing just wasn't there. And so this is a critical component, because at the same time, so many news agencies are touting a housing recovery. So if you watched NBC News, Wall Street Journal, Forbes, you read any of these news outlets, so many of the latest discussions on housing were that housing is on recovery. It's rebounding. It's on fire. Prices are climbing in all these metropolitan areas. Atlanta and Nevada, of course, and Las Vegas, California markets and Florida markets. Detroit, of all places, which you used to give your real estate for free to sell it, I think even had price gains this year. So what I found to be alarming, Gene, is if there's so much talk of housing recovery, at least when we have the political sphere, that seems to me like the right opportunity to come out and just say, It's turned around. It's so much better off. Look what's happening. Prices are increasing all over the place. And at the same time, if you look deep into the news and the stats across our nation, the storylines aren't all what they're cracked up to be. And I think that is the crux of why politicians avoided jumping up and down about how beneficial this housing recovery actually is. So I'm here to give it to you straight. I know a lot of times when you ask a commission salesperson, and I'm a broker, about these types of topics, you're sometimes listening halfway because you wonder what the quality of that content, of their responses and their insight on the market really is, because they're measuring the value. And I don't want to paint this across the board, because I think there's a very few that operate this way. But most of you, I'd argue, are not my clients. So I'm here. I have no, reason not to basically come out and just put it out there like it is. But what is interesting about the housing market right now is that we have a massive amount of defaults still in Las Vegas. In Vegas, we have 10 to 13 of every 100 loans is delinquent. Okay, the latest one of the latest reports I saw in August was that we're running close to 11% delinquency on our loans. That's around 70 to 80,000 properties that are in trouble. Okay, so if that's the case, why is it that our housing market is climbing if these are concerns that are still out there in the background? Okay, you have price increases, as I mentioned, all over the nation, and you can Google this. You can see that in Atlanta, so many other markets, New York, especially the sand states, where investors are very interested in investing, such as California, Nevada, Florida, to name a few key markets.
The Phoenix market as well.
Phoenix market is absolutely one that has seen such a high rate of delinquency. The interesting part, okay, so if Nevada has 70 to 80,000 properties in delinquency, okay, these are in the background. Why is it that we don't have homes for sale? Okay, right now you can drive down most streets in Vegas, and the site of 3 years ago, where there was a sign every other house, and the homes all looked empty, you don't see that site much anymore. The interesting component of this is really starting to hit the news in the last probably 5 to 6 months about AB 284, an assembly bill that went through last year went into effect October 1st of 2011 that basically took the foreclosure process to a screeching halt. So with that being the case, the foreclosure process ended, and it's obviously still going, but it's creeping along. When you're used to having foreclosures at a rate of 3,000 to 4,000 a month, and then they go down to a couple hundred a month, you don't have all that dead inventory moving, and so there's not as much for sale. So the available inventory on the market as a result of AB 284, the changes in that process, absolutely hindered the rate of available inventory on our market. The interesting part is that while the inventory has stalled, new inventory is going into trouble. Okay, so we have all this distressed property that's stalled, and every single day more homes are falling into the same trap where homeowners unfortunately can't pay the bill. So we're going to talk about all of that and more when we come back. Jared Jones, The Real Report. Jared Jones coming back to you with The Real Report. We were talking about the fact that the presidential candidates were surprisingly silent on housing, when the headlines of the day have so many comments that resemble recovery and rebound. And I gave some background and laid some groundwork on the fact that Las Vegas right now is experiencing lower than normal available inventory. It's caused available homes, resales, what we would call as a used home. Those properties are down in volume because of the amount of properties that could be moving through the foreclosure process, could be going to foreclosure sale and then brought back as a bank-owned property. For the last close to a year now, we just have, actually it's been past a year now, we have seen that pipeline slow down and ultimately come to a screeching halt. Now, AB 284, interestingly, the sponsor of that bill was taken out of office, lost re-election last night. So obviously, there's some concern politically, and I have good word that there is a lot of work. The folks are really trying to figure out how they can kind of get things back in motion again, because AB 284 specifically, it's been read in much of the press on it as some of the strongest language that exist for protecting and structuring how foreclosures take place. But if you look at, here's the interesting component. Everybody in Nevada, a lot of my colleagues point to AB 284 as the end-all of what's taken foreclosures completely offline. But there, even while we've been told, I think, in the market and the public that mortgage delinquencies have been declining over the past year, there's been areas, for instance, if you pull the metro New York City area, through the end of March 2012, a total of 192,000 pre-foreclosure notices have been sent to delinquent owners in New York City. This does not include delinquent investor-owned properties, because the law did not require servicers to have to send notices to them. So there's an assumed 75,000 more of those that are also delinquent, which means there's roughly 265,000 seriously delinquent homeowners in New York City who have not been foreclosed on. Well, why so many? Well, the banks do not foreclose in New York City. As of May 24, foreclosure.com reported a total of 301 foreclosed properties on the active listing service, the MLS, where you shop for a home, and 103 in Brooklyn, which is astonishingly low when you consider that these two boroughs have roughly 4.7 million residences in those two areas. So why, if there's 265,000 delinquent homes in the background, so little is for sale? If you also read about rents in those areas, they're going through the roof, because the homes that people might acquire with this cheap mortgage money, doesn't matter how cheap the mortgage money is if you can't find a home. Bank repos in Maricopa County, Phoenix, another market we just talked about, it's extremely hot, plunged from 3,159 units in April of 2011, last year, to a mere 767 a year later. And so the banks are absolutely holding down the amount of inventory they have in markets like Phoenix. And it's funny, I have folks that, that are in the lending world there and some that are in the real estate world. There we have a Horizon Southwest branch in Phoenix. And I sometimes hear the comment that, oh, Phoenix has turned a page. It's in better footing now and this and that. There's no bank owns for sale. But I tell you that if you look at the delinquencies that are in the background, they aren't relinquished. That means that in Vegas, if we have 70 to 80,000 homeowners that are in trouble, that those homes will eventually need to work their way through the system. And the real concern is what takes place in our market. What does our future hold when we actually clean up through the inventory in markets? Miami-Dade is the same situation. As of May of this year, I was amazed to learn there were only 282 repos or bank owns in the active MLS, an area that experiences 20, 30,000 bank repossessed properties in an entire year. To have just a couple hundred, obviously something's off. So AB 284 was specific to Nevada. When you consider that and the fact that other markets that were, these foreclosure lightning rods, states like ours and lightning rod markets, they didn't have an AB 284, yet their markets are grinding down. So it leaves me to believe there's obviously, I don't know the driving force. But if you look at the way things sit and you look ahead to the year 2013, the idea when you see that prices climb this year because of lowered supply, and some of them have made huge leaps. I mean, there's charts that show 17% increase in price in Las Vegas. I mean, just incredible increase and over this year alone. It makes you really stop to think about what 2013 might look like. Because if we're building towards 80 and 90,000 homes that have to be worked through the system, then we only sell, I want to say, 20 to 25,000 bank owns on a busy year. I mean, when you have signs all over the market, when we were really hauling on property and trying to get those properties back to the market so people could live in them, I mean, you're talking 20, 25,000 homes. If you're getting towards 80, 90,000 properties on the backlog, you really, really have to focus when you consider strategy, when you consider the information you need to know. You really need to understand that this epic inventory that looms in the background, I mean, we're talking 3 to 4 busy years at minimum, and that's if we stop any new delinquencies from taking place, and we know that's not reality. Reality is more delinquencies are mostly on the way. And what has been completely overlooked by the media is the enormous number of properties with second liens. I mean, there are still second mortgage holders or home equity lines of credit for those that just heard me say lien and think I'm talking about propping yourself up on something. But you have second liens. There are still nearly 12 million home equity lines of credit outstanding. And it's safe to say that a huge percentage of those are underwater. That means that there's no money backing that lien anymore. Roughly 30% of all home equity lines of credit were originated in California, and you have millions of homeowners there that have home equity lines in excess of $100,000. The home equity HELOC boom, if you will, home equity line of credit boom, really kicked in 2003. And most of these revolving credit lines were interest-only loans for the first 10 years, and after that they convert. And they go to a 15-year fully amortized loan. And that means at the beginning of 2013, these loans are going to start to transform into fully amortized loans. And the number of loans that are going to do that increase are going to go up in 2014, even higher in 15 and higher in 16. And when you think about the market, what do we think will happen when homeowners who've had HELOC payments in the hundreds of dollars a month soar to more than $1,000 a month? I mean, the monthly payments that will go into effect in just California is mind-boggling. And so when we kind of look over what's happening and we see what's in the background, you really start to get an idea of what may play out in 2013. Is the fact that we took a year off per se in several markets from foreclosure. So much so that there was quarter over quarter housing gains in terms of prices climbing. And so many of our sellers right now that I've talked to, I mean, so many people, when they hear the math of this, they say, Jared, I'm an empty nester now. Jared, I just had my kids move out. We were really thinking about just getting a smaller place a couple years from now. But we're starting to calculate this out, and this is absolutely the best time to get out in front of the market. I mean, I have probably the best time in almost artificial created circumstance, an anomaly set of events that creates this burst of equity, puts 17%, according to the stats, into people's pockets overnight on $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. So it's like a $30,000, $40,000 equity gift because of the situation in the market and the year we experienced with slower supply. But the reality is, if we're not paying attention and we don't, and the mission of our show is understanding what we need to know for proper timing. And the second is utilizing the information we have for good strategy. The reality is that if we have the forecast in front of us, where 10 years, within the next 10 years, I mean, I covered this on CBS, on Channel 8 at 5 o'clock. I did a spot with the folks over there. And when we did they asked me to talk about the shadow inventory. We went over some numbers. And when we went over it, you know, I stated it myself that I don't feel like there's a better time. If you have something to sell, take advantage of the anomaly. And you move forward with the market knowing what we know. And the other side of this coin, okay, we look at all this news, and the next side is that we have 3 years of inventory and this and that, and the most common thing is buyers want to know what they've got to do about it. It's so awesome to see buyers when we actually tell them, you know, what's the strategy like? What do we got to do about it? And I'm going to cover exactly what buyers need to know right after this break. Hey friends, welcome back. Jared Jones with The Real Report, and I gave a ton of information on the first half hour and brought it full circle. Why the presidential campaigns, neither the runoff, or, you know, Romney or Obama, both were very silent on the subject. Brought up some news, supporting the changes in the market, and I feel, you know, one interesting component is when I look at the data and just brought out what we talked about the first half hour, it seems interesting to me that if things are the way they are, okay, if the dynamics of the market are what they are, then you know, and now that you have a great background of what's going on coast to coast from that first 30-minute segment, you know, you get an idea why it might be bad business to walk out there and say, hey, everybody, things are great in housing, and then possibly have some real transitions taking place in the next 2 years. You know, it's probably, you know, under advisement, you know, it's probably made a lot of sense for the president and for Romney to not run out on the latest housing news and all these positive comments of rebounding and this and that, and hang it up that it's recovered and run off that, and then have some real strange challenges still in the wake, because then that'd just be a whole bunch more press they have to deal with later. So, you know, what does that mean to you? Okay, you're a buyer now. Okay, it's strategy. You want to buy. What does that mean, and how can you gain what you need to know? Coming from me, you know, I've transacted 3,000 units of real estate, own a lot of it myself, currently in the past. Ahead of that, I'm going to segue back. I know it's obvious that not everyone wants to sell their home and move, but you know, you do have alternatives. If you are not aware already, there are programs available to underwater homeowners that will allow you to refinance down to current market rates no matter how much you owe. So this is key. People, you know, some folks don't want to sell. They're not late on their payments, but they're struggling for certain reasons. If you currently have an FHA mortgage, there are programs available that don't even require a credit report. There's no credit report. You just have to have not had any mortgage lates in the past 12 months. So that's key. If you have a mortgage currently serviced with Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, you may not be aware that there's a program available for you as well. There's a program available to you that can give you up to $50,000 in principal curtailment. This brings me to a story. I'll take a minute and share a story by a preferred lender of mine, someone we work with quite a bit, named Jeff Wusenich at First Cal Mortgage, was telling me today. And we were talking about possible solutions to the housing problems that we were having in Nevada, and he was telling me about a program that they were utilizing that clients actually can apply up to $50,000 in principal curtailment if they're eligible for HARP. So he was telling me this client that he was about to close with, the client purchased their home in 2008 and came to Jeff and wanting to refinance his mortgage. He was severely upside down. He owed over $235,000, and the house now, imagine this, is only worth $145,000. Okay, his current mortgage was interest only, so he wasn't paying the principal down at all. He wasn't moving the needle down on what he owed, and saw no hope. But the client did know that his mortgage was a Fannie Mae mortgage, so he called Jeff to see if there's any options for him to be able to keep his home. After getting all the information that Jeff had from him, he kind of figured out that he was eligible for HARP, as I mentioned, that he could not only refinance, but he could refinance from his interest-only adjustable rate, which is obviously more of a scary loan to most, to a 30-year fix that gave him a comparable payment. But that's not the end of the story. Jeff also got his client to apply for a program through the state that gave his homeowners money to assist with their principal curtailment. You're probably wondering what curtailment is, right? It sounds like a disorder of some kind, right? Well, it just means that they give you money to reduce the principal, the balance of what you owe, with certain conditions. If you satisfy those conditions, then the client never has to pay the money back. In this case, the main condition is that the homeowners maintain the property as their primary residence for at least 2 more years. You got to live in the house. So back to the story. Jeff's client applied for this program, was approved for the maximum amount, got $50,000. The result of this is the client now has a loan that they're actually paying down and has a new loan balance of $185,000. And it's going from interest only. It's being paid down. The payment also dropped by nearly $200 a month. So the guy's putting almost $2,500 back in his pocket, which is incredible. But all lenders are not participating in this program. First Cal, my buddy Jeff, they are. This is an awesome opportunity, and I know some of you just need strategies to help you stay in your home. You absolutely should reach out to Jeff. He's local at 348-7573. That's 348-7573. If you're not sure any details, you don't know if you're upside, downside, right side, Fannie, Freddie, Billy, Susie, call Jeff. He will help you out. He can take you from where you are to where you need to be. Check out refinance options, principal curtailment, and definitely be there to help you. 348-7573. But one more thing before we kind of go back into these buyer concerns. Buyers, what should they do right now? The shadow inventory that exists. Gene, shadows. It's like a Halloween thing. Shadow inventory. So buyers, you are going to know exactly what you need to know. If especially you're out there, you're looking for a home, you've been beat for multiple offers 18 times in a row because the $50,000 houses sell in about 3 minutes, Gene, in this market? They last 3 minutes anymore? They're less than 3 minutes of homes are on the market at under $50,000. So with all that said, if you have topics that are just eating you up, you're an investor, you can't figure out how to get more cash flow, you can't figure out how to keep your place rented, you're a homeowner, you can't figure out how to sell your home yourself, I would love to talk to you about that. If you have a topic idea and or a question that you want me to cover, contact me at 496-5000. That's 496-5000. Or go to my website and find me there, 4965000.com. That's 4965000.com. And we'll be more than happy to take show ideas and make sure that pressing topics are discussed We have some really awesome things we're going to talk about next week. 7 costly mistakes that cost sellers thousands of dollars. You do not want to miss that show. Next Wednesday, 5 o'clock, 7 costly mistakes that cost sellers thousands of dollars. You do not want to miss it. I don't care if you don't want to sell your house. You will walk away with some huge information as a potential prospective investor, whatever your goal may be.
Well, I think if I can interject for 1 second, it's no matter what you are, if you're a seller or a buyer in today's market, it's very important just to be educated and know all your options. Just as you were speaking of, Jeff, there's a lot of homeowners that don't understand that there's all these programs available, and for buyers as well. I mean, there's a lot of different options that you have. A lot of people are frustrated with, like Jared said, when certain price ranges that you have multiple offers out there and never get an offer accepted. But there's different ways around that, and if you consult a professional, we can help you educate you on those options that you might have.
It's great points. Great points. Yeah, with buyers right now, buyers are saying to me, because I'm going to be brutally honest. I love to look a buyer in the face and say, you know what, I don't need the commission. So I'm just going to tell you the truth. Is that okay with you? And I say A, B, and C. The market is this way, prices may do this, and, when you reconcile that, where do you stand? Okay, Jared, show me a house. But that's the way we're going to tell you, And if you do have concerns or comments on the market, reach out to me, 4965000.com or 4965000. But buyers, the interesting component right now is that you just heard the way the market is stacked right now. What's going on in the market? There's home prices are going up, which is fantastic. If you own homes, you have equity. If you have a property that you own and you are contemplating a move in next year or the year after, my comments are that I am selling most of what I want to sell right now. And I recommend that if you are seriously wanting to liquidate your property, that you be under contract before the spring of next year. Because in my mind, and I'm just putting the information out there, you have to make your own decisions. But if there's 70,000 homes that are delinquent, there's a day of reckoning. There's a time when the home can't stay vacant anymore. The process has to ensue to correct those concerns. That means you're going to have more competing inventory. The more inventory that's out there competing with the sale of your home later on is basically shifts the momentum into the favor of the buyer. They go, I can choose from you and your neighbor and the 2 guys down, and the banks have 8 other homes on your street, and they pay whatever they want, and prices drop at that point. So the reality is you want to be in a market like now. And that's kind of where I contemplate my own opinion, is saying, look, if you have to sell anytime soon, and a lot of folks in the past 2 or 3 months that have heard me give a talk at an event or anything else, and they say, man, you were right, or especially a year ago when we were talking about where this market was going. But as a buyer, you look at this and you say, Jared, this picture is bleak. You're telling me that there's fewer homes to pick from, values are going up, and there's a reality that there might be more homes on the market next year, which if I buy a house, could soften my value. Okay? That is true as can be. That's an absolutely appropriate picture to look at, which if you go to most people that sell anything, right, is how is that car on safety? Up until you buy it, it's the greatest car on the planet. So it's really, it kind of defeats reality when someone actually listens to someone who is in real estate say, you know what? The potential change in your market next year could impact the value of your home. But the reality is this: until you can make a justifiable argument to me that it makes more sense to rent than it does to own, then you make your decision based on the cards you have in front of you, right? So take me, for instance, Gene. I'll give you my example. I bought a home. My home was immediately underwater versus what I paid for it, okay, within a year. And I bought in the last couple of years. The reality is, though, my payment on my house is around $1,700 a month. Or I could rent my house for $2,600 or $2,700 a month. Okay, so that to me doesn't make sense when I'm paying for something. I'm getting my cash back through reducing a loan balance. And additionally, I have interest that can be deducted. See your CPA. Don't ask me. So there's still an overriding volume of advantages to buyers. And there's just these few that I've mentioned now. I'm going to wrap that up when we come back from the break. Jared Jones, The Real Report. Jared Jones, Real Report. Welcome back. We've been talking about all kinds of interesting topics today. Listen, sellers, I have buyers standing ready to buy your home. I meet with clients, and it blows them away when I walk in with a list of comparables. You first meet a client. It's a free service. You go in, you give them an idea of what to do, and more importantly, what not to do to get the most from the sale of their home. And you walk in, and they're blown away by the fact that I don't operate on marketing that worked in 15 years ago, which is pretty important today. But I walk in, and I'll hand them 5 pages of buyers that called my office in the last 2 months. 200-300 people, and say, why don't we just match someone to buy your home next week? So it's a huge thing. It's a lot of fun. And if you have a situation where you want to get a free no-hassle valuation on your home, 4965000.com, you can go right on the website and get a quick idea of what your home's worth. No obligation. You don't need to sell. You don't need to do anything. But if you are interested, check it out. We've been talking about buyers, and we spoke a second ago about the fact that, it's very realistic that the market could change next year. And it could change from the aspect, in the next couple of years, that the volume of properties could pick up. There's going to be a lot more on the market. If supply picks up to a certain point, then home values could change. So, should we buy? And I flipped it. I said, well, should you rent? If you can prove to me that you should rent a home, and it's better than economically speaking, then I would say, hey, that's sound, right? Just weigh your options. This is all unique to the individual. Some people can get 2% interest rates right now. You get 2 or 3% interest, and you want to keep a house for 30 years. Your money is almost free to borrow for the house. And if the price, if you say, well, Jared, next year values, who cares? Over time, does it matter to you at 2 and 3% interest rates if you have an up and down fluctuation in value? All you can look at is the way things stand today. And choosing to rent, in a lot of cases, is paying a higher payment, and instead of you having your own home, you're paying your landlord's mortgage.
Exactly.
You're paying your landlord's mortgage off for them. And chances are you're not just paying their mortgage, you're giving them like a 30% cash flow every single month. So the person's mortgage you cut your $1,000 check to, they're probably paying their mortgage at $600 or $700, right? And the reality is you don't have to be on the sidelines. And as far as the market's concerned, the strategy is super key right now. Strategy is so key, Gene. Like, people are out there trudging along, trying to find homes. They're writing tons of offers. I'm amazed oftentimes. We have a VIP buyer benefits program. We have a free list of homes through our Home Hunter service that drops the ideal homes right on our clients' emails. And so, so many folks are out there running around on Zillow. And when you talk about the wrong strategy, Zillow and Realtor.com, a lot of these places are helpful, but so many times when we look at the people who are checking in on our properties, like, oh, I like this house. Yeah, but you needed to like it 3 weeks ago. And they're like, well, it just came online. The reality is we can get you homes in your email before for like 90% of the real estate agents can even see them in many cases. And we can get tough to find homes that are off market, bank pre-foreclosures, properties that are off market that you just can't get to on the internet. Tough to find properties.
And Jared, I can't tell you how many calls a day I field with people are very excited about that program because they do see these properties that no one else has access to.
Yeah, it's just a better use of your time. It's when you look at it and you say, can I sift and sort through hundreds of homes and make all these calls and emails that absolutely waste time talking to people to hear things aren't there anymore, have 20 offers, and having them land so that you can make the decision and find that perfect home quicker.
By the time the buyers look at the open or email, there's already an offer accepted on the property.
Listen, free home hunter service, 4965000.com or 4965000. You can get a free list of properties that match exactly what you're looking for. No obligation. If you buy or not, doesn't matter. It's no obligation service. It's a much better way to have a strategy involved in this. Gene Haffey, my man from LA, worked in real estate for me for 5-6 years now. Just a brilliant guy. Buyers love him. His buyers and his sellers just think he's. You walk on realtor water, they say, Gene. So we've had all these issues with homes being underwater. There's credit issues, right? Folks, in an underwater market like Las Vegas, everything's underwater. Tell me about, as a homeowner, what do I need to be ready for? Let's say that, you know what, I'm hearing about the laws changing, and I need urgency now because I know that if I wait to short sell my home, if my home is upside down, I need to sell it. I know the time is getting near that I need to deal with this thing. What do I need to expect credit-wise? What are some of the theories out there?
Well, as far as you're talking about, as far as points, as far as your credit score, I mean, typically they're saying right now the latest Fair Isaac report was that you can figure on about a 200 to 300 FICO score hit, with short selling your property, foreclosure in the same range. There's a lot of thoughts on it. One thought is that obviously you want to be a step ahead of the game, be proactive. The sooner you're able to get away from that property, the sooner you're able to recover. There's different programs out there, and once again, a free plug to Jeff with First Cow, but there's programs out there where people are able to buy at a relatively quick time after that process.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of folks that had upside-down homes that were buying really quickly. I mean, right after, a year, 2 years. Just depends on the situation.
Yeah, and it's one thing I always tell my buyers, or sellers, I said, just be proactive about it and get your credit back, on a good standing. Get credit cards if you have to even get the prepaid credit cards. Get them, spend, keep your balances low, and it'll help your score.
Oh, and it's super risky right now. I mean, there's so many folks that I think statistically are procrastinating. You have that many homes that are behind on their payments. Next week, we cover 7 costly mistakes. If you are an underwater homeowner, you can't afford to not miss. I mean, there's thousands of dollars for you as an underwater homeowner that is just there to incentivize you to help move your property. And if you don't, or if you deal with the situation as being an underwater homeowner incorrectly, it can cost you in a big, big way.
Well, I think that's kind of where we're going too. Up with underwater homeowners, there's a lot of liability for a lot of people who, whether you're in the house or not in the house, you still have a lot of liability as far as that property is concerned. And if you don't do anything about it, it could come back and bite you.
Okay, Gene, I've surrendered my home in bankruptcy. Now, am I cool? Can I walk? I surrendered it. Trustees got that baby. Am I covered now, or do I still have some liability with my name on title?
Well, this is another one that I field calls all the time that people have gone through a bankruptcy and they think that they've surrendered the home, but actually they haven't. They're still the legal owner of the home. They're on title, so they are still responsible for HOAs, the fines and penalties that are incurring. And they incur after your filing date. There's a lot that we can discuss with that and give you more information once again if you contacted us at 496-5000. But also, too, there are a lot of liability issues. If something was to happen on your property and it's a vacant property, or even, like I said, you occupying a property, you're still liable.
Yeah. And there's the old folklore story about someone who owned a home and it was vacant and a vagrant walks in and set off a fire and it burns down the neighbor's home. They're liable. They've so many folks that go through bankruptcy, unfortunately, they write the whole thing off. They're like, discharged, I'm done, da-da-da-da. And the reality is a lot of these folks have cash incentives they could take advantage of. I mean, we've had post-bankruptcy clients discharge and all this stuff, think they're gone. Not only are they in danger of the liability, but they, some cases up to $25,000 of incentive money that the banks put on the table for these folks. I mean, we've seen, mortgages, homes that were worth $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 get a huge cash rebate through the being compliant with doing these short sales.
Once again, it goes back to understanding all of your options and being educated. So that's, probably the biggest point that I have is just know your options and consult with somebody that can help you out.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? It's a reality out there that that people get the information too late. Next week, definitely tune in. We didn't cover anything on underwater homes today. Next week, we're going to have 7 costly mistakes that sellers really want to know about to avoid costing yourself thousands of dollars. There's just deadly mistakes that cost people big, and the good news is that each and every one of the mistakes that we will discuss are entirely preventable. And it's just going to be an amazing thing. So if you are an investor and you're looking for better returns on cash, why not earn cash returns on rent? The market is extremely low on supply, and when supply is low, we know what happens to price. Investors love price increases, don't they? Call today to get a list to your email of hot off-market listings, bank-owned, pre-foreclosure, builder closeouts. Get them priority. You don't have to just be a cash investor, even credit investors, or just home buyers. The faster you get them, the better the opportunity you have of finding the perfect home. Investors, our home hunter service is amazing. Call 496-5000 or go to 4965000.com and check it out.
And Jared, if I can interject real quick on the investors, don't forget about the investor properties that have tenant occupied already, which is a big benefit for a lot of our investors.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of these properties are on the market and they have tenants in them, so they're a lot tougher to show. Buyers can't get into them, which makes them, a lot of times they'll stay on the market a little bit longer. And a lot of times these people that are in the homes don't necessarily want to move. But with that, get a hold of us next week, 5 o'clock. Jared Jones and The Real Report, 7 costly mistakes that sellers make.
You've been listening to Jared Jones and The Real Report. Tune in next week at the same time for another show.